Hi, Charles of SirBookSage here, and this is my October TBR. I have a short list, not a whole lot, but I'm going to go through the list of books I'm going to be reading this month, and then after I finish telling you what I'm going to be reading, I'm going to explain to you how these small set of books fits into about 3 and possibly 4 read-a-thons that are taking place throughout the month of October. The very first book on my list that I'm going to be reading for the very first time is William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist. Now, I've already put out an announcement video talking about that book and why I'm reading it, so I will link that below. So I don't need to go into any great detail here. You can watch that video. That'll explain to you particularly why I'm reading it. The next book on my October TBR is Stephen King's It. I've read this before. It's actually one of my favorite Stephen King books, and I've been looking for an excuse to finally reread this, and I found the perfect excuse to reread it this year, October. And I'm going to be going into detail at the end of this video when I break down the read-a-thons I've discovered and how these books that I'm talking about here kind of fit into a bunch of these read-a-thons. So I'm really looking forward to rereading this again. Absolutely loved this book. I have not seen the new movie yet. I'm probably not going to make it to the theaters to see it, so most likely I'll see it when it comes out on DVD or on Netflix or something. Third on my list is Carmilla. It's a Victorian era horror book. It's a vampire book. This actually was a recommendation mentioned by Books and Things. She's not actually reading it this month, but she mentioned it in a TBR video that she has. I'll link that below as well. I've never read it. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's October, and since it's one of the earliest vampire books, it should be a very different experience from any modern vampire things. Speaking of modern vampires, the next 2 books I'm going to be reading are books 1 and 2 of an urban fantasy series from Gail Z. Martin. Now, Gail Z. Martin is known more for her epic fantasy stories. I'm a big fan of those. I've had these 2 books in my Kindle library for quite a while. These are urban fantasy, and it's the Deadly Curiosities series. Book 1 is Deadly Curiosities. Book 2 is Vendetta. And what's interesting is, I'm going to just check the synopsis here. These follow Cassidy Kincaid, who owns Trifles and Folly. It's an antique and curio shop in South Carolina, in Charleston. And the family tradition, the family business, has been hunting down and neutralizing supernatural and magical items so they don't fall into the wrong hands and wreak all sorts of havoc. And her business partner in her store is Soren, who is apparently a 500-year-old vampire. So I've been looking for an excuse to read these for quite a while, fitting with the October horror theme. I'm reading the Carmilla, the Victorian vampire book. Seemed like the perfect time to dive into these. And then I've added a bonus read for myself for October. And I'm going to be reading Sherlock Holmes, A Scandal in Bohemia, which is the very first original Sherlock Holmes story published in the Strand magazine. And I actually have, it was a gift from one of my uncles, my Uncle Barry. This is the complete Sherlock Holmes treasury. And this is a book that is a reproduction of the original set of Sherlock Holmes stories that appeared and how they appeared in the Strand, how they were laid out, including all the original illustrations. I've never actually read that first story, the one with Irene Adler, so I'm looking forward to it. It's like a little bonus read. Those are my books. Not a lot, but it by itself is over 1,000 pages, so page-wise it's a decent amount. And here's now how they fit in some read-a-thons. Books and Things, who I mentioned earlier in the video, is doing a Victober Read-a-thon for the month of October. She is, if you've seen any of her videos, you know she is a Victorian era novel fanatic. That's like, seemed to be among her favorite books in the whole world. So she's doing a whole Victober themed. She's not going to be reading Carmilla in Victober, but she had it mentioned in her TBR video, which I'll link below for her Read-a-thon TBR. So that's pretty cool. And since I'm reading Carmilla and A Scandal in Bohemia, technically Sherlock Holmes is Victorian. It's published in the last few years of the Victorian era. These are 1891 through 1893, which is right in the last decade of the Victorian era. So technically it's only a book and a short story, but it kind of fits part of the Victober. So I'm not going to be reading exclusively Victorian books, obviously, and I'm not going to be reading Victorian stories all throughout the month, but I'm including 2 in my TBR this month to kind of hat tip virtually, digitally to the Victober. The other read-a-thon is Paperback Junkies, and this is the reason I'm reading it. He's going to be doing It-tober, and he came up with the idea to take it and break it down into about 40-page sections that gives you about 31 groupings. So he's never read it before, so he's going to be reading it for the first time. He has an initial video talking about it. I'll link that below. He's probably going to come out with another one, kind of going over it, maybe in a little more detail. I will edit this description and add that once he's uploaded his video. So that's why I'm rereading it at this particular time. I'm going to be participating in Paperback Junky's It-tober and reading pretty much the same pages throughout the month. He might have like a group chat on one of the chat apps, but it's all mentioned in his videos. So you can click that link and go over there and find out about that. So you can actually discuss the sections you've read each day. Another read-a-thon that's going on is Silvia Kay's put together a Cozy-a-thon. And there's a lot of things on the list. There's like 16 different challenges, all very laid-back stuff, and I don't think you particularly have to do all 16. Or read in a coffee shop, read in a bathtub, read in comfy clothes. Just, it's meant to be a very staying in the house as autumn weather sets in, and just kind of relax with a cup of tea and a book, or whatever your drink of choice is, and a book. I don't know that when I'm reading throughout this month of October, if any of the reading situations I'll be in will fit her criteria, but I'm going to check it out. I'll link that below. It might be something you're interested in if you're interested in just a very casual read-a-thon. So, sounds interesting. That runs October 1st through October 15th in particular. And Silvia is also participating in the Victober Read-a-thon for books and things. And one of her reads is actually a Sherlock Holmes read, which is what inspired me to add my bonus read of the short story. The fourth read-a-thon that I guess my books kind of fit into, or at least the third one that my books fit into, the Cozy-a-thon, is one that I could, depending upon where I choose to read these books, fit into. And that is Spook-a-thon by Books and Lala. She has a small list, and everything on my list meets the criteria for Spook-a-thon. And that, interestingly, takes place October 16th through the 22nd. So you could do the Cozy-a-thon from the 1st to the 15th, and then this from the 16th to the 22nd. Both of those, the Cozy-a-thon and the Spook-a-thon, have prize giveaways. So I'll have their links below. You can go check them out to see how to participate and be eligible. The only challenge on Spook-a-thon that I guess technically mine might not meet is one of the books you read has to have orange in the cover. And really none of mine have orange in the cover except the Vendetta, book 2 of the Deadly Curiosities. I'll show it here again. Underneath the title it says a Deadly Curiosities novel. And that's a very, very orange, if it's red, it's a very orangey red font color. So I'm going to go with that as orange. Close enough as far as I'm concerned. So I guess in a way, I'm just reading these set of 5 books. Or 4 books, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books and a short story. And they kind of at least fit into Victober a little bit, into Spook-a-thon a little bit, It-tober in particular. And depending upon where I physically choose to read those books, or I guess if I'm wearing my pajamas and a robe and slippers, that's a participation in Cozy-a-thon as well. I guess a neat little way to kind of, without having to have 37,000 books to read in October, I can somehow participate in up to as many as 4 read-a-thons. I will talk to you soon, and happy reading.